Folks, my name is Mike Demaro. I am here to do uh, NFL 2022 preview and my predictions for the standings and for the playoffs and the Super Bowl. And I want to also talk about the NFL 17th game and the scheduling and also about the preseason scheduling too. And I know that these are my opinions, so please understand that I may say something you may not like. I may say something that I like. So I hope that you'll understand that these are just my opinions and my predictions, and we can get going from there. What will I be talking about in here? I'll be talking about the 2022 NFL regular season predictions. I will talk about the 2022 NFL playoffs and Super Bowl 57. I'm going to talk about a few things that could happen in 2022, including a first. You'll have to wait and see what I'm talking about on that. My opinion on the NFL 17th game. My opinion on the NFL preseason. And like I said earlier, these are my opinions and my predictions, so I might not satisfy everyone and whatever, and I might say something that you guys might not like and all that, so. But let's get going. And before we do, I just want to say that these are all the the predictions I have done. They're through the predictor schedule predictor, so on the website. So that's how I did these standings and all. AFC East. As we can see here, I have Buffalo going 14-3. I know that's kind of far fetched, but the Bills have proven to me that they're the number one team in the AFC. Spoiler alert on that. Now, the Patriots are going to falter a little, but they're going to finish 9-8. Miami Dolphins are also going to finish 9-8. They finished 9-8 last year too, so it doesn't surprise me. I have it on there. Now the New York Jets, they still haven't proven to me anything yet. So until they do, they're not going to have a good record, and I'm only going to predict them to have be 5-12. At one point in my predictions, I've had New England go into the playoffs as a wild card, but my final prediction here, they are not. Miami will not either. And New England wins the tiebreaker over Miami due to the division record. I think I had New England at 4-2 and Miami at 2-4. So that's why we have it here like that. All right, we go on to the AFC North. Cincinnati, I think, is going to run away with it again, with 13-4 being their record. But here's an interesting twist of fate. We have Baltimore, who went off an 8-9 season. They were supposed to do well last season, but due to injuries, they finished 8-9. They're going to be 11-6, and that's going to be very important as we see coming up. Pittsburgh Steelers, without Ben Roethlisberger there, they're not going to do that well. And I have a feeling that the quarterback that they have is going to be, it's going to be a, it's not going to be a good time in Pittsburgh. And I have predicted them as 6-11. Now, Cleveland Browns, I have them predicted at 5-12. They would have been higher, but here's the thing. Deshaun Watson was the key in all this. was the key factor. He was suspended for 11 games and not going to return until the Week 13 matchup against Houston. And I have a feeling that Cleveland is going to take a step back and not do so well in the beginning part. But I do see them winning a few games with Deshaun Watson back. So 5-12 is a little low, but at the same time, understand that their star quarterback was suspended for 11 games. And that's why you have to factor that in. Proceeding on to the AFC South. This is going to be the only division I think is going to have a new division champ. The Indianapolis Colts at 11-6. Matt Ryan is going to prove something to the people in Indianapolis and get them back up to the playoffs. And it's going to be very tight between the Colts and the Titans, who I predicted will have 9-8. Now, 9-8, I know that's a little rough to pick that record, but I had to do it 9-8 because they're gonna have a tough schedule. They play at Green Bay, and I have a feeling they're gonna lose the last one to Jacksonville in Jacksonville, like Indianapolis lost in Jacksonville last season. And I also predicted that Jacksonville is going to beat Indianapolis again in Jacksonville coming up week 2. So that's why. I have a feeling that Jacksonville is going to be very, very tough to beat at home for the division rivals. So, and Houston Texans, we don't know what's going to happen with them, but I think they're going to be the last place team in the conference at 2-15. And could I have them win more games? Maybe, but we don't know. So 2-15 is going to be my safe spot right there, and we'll see how it goes. Bring our focus to the toughest division, the most competitive division ever. And I just realized something on the slide. I put Oakland instead of Las Vegas. I'm sorry. But anyways, I did put LV as Las Vegas on the down there, and throughout the rest of the presentation, I did say Las Vegas. So, but anyways, you have Kansas City at 11-6. You have Las Vegas, Denver, and Los Angeles all at 10-7. Now, this is an interesting situation here because it's going to be a tough division battle. They're all going to do well. And even the fourth place team on here has a 10-win season. It might not make the playoffs even, you know? However, according to this, I have Las Vegas, Denver, and Kansas City going to the playoffs, with Los Angeles being the odd man out. But as we see later, there is actually a situation where all 4 of these could actually be in the playoffs. And I'll share that with you coming up. Now, we're going to focus on the NFC standings. Dallas Cowboys, I'd be lucky to see them win 10, 11 games this season, depending on how they do. Philadelphia, with 9-8. I know that's going to be a rough record and all that. And I know some people think Philadelphia is going to do a little bit better and maybe even win the division. But I have them at 9-8 in second place because of all the games. And then I have the Washington newly named Commanders at 6-11. I know Carson Wentz is going to try to prove something to the people in Washington and get revenge on his old team, the Eagles, and They even have a matchup with the Colts, so we'll see how they do on those. But I don't think he's going to prevail in the one versus the Colts. I do think he's going to prevail with the at when the Eagles come to Washington. And then for last place, unless this team proves something to me that I don't see, the New York Giants are going to be 4-13. That's the way I predict it, and the way it's going to be, unless we see something remarkable happen. I have a feeling the Giants are going to be last place in the NFC East. The North, the NFC North. Now, this is going to be a tough one because you're going to have two great teams who's going to battle it out to the end. That's Green Bay and Minnesota. They're both going to finish in 13-4. However, Green Bay is going to win the tiebreaker over Minnesota based on common opponents. And I forgot what the record was on that. But Green Bay is going to have the division title. Minnesota is going to be in as wild card. And I know some people are going to think, why am I predicting Minnesota to be that high? And I have a feeling that Minnesota is going to be coming back. And I have a feeling that things are going to go smoothly and Minnesota's going to be the team to beat and get a wild card spot. Detroit Lions at 5-12. I think that's going to be an optimistic record there. Could see them with 3 wins. Could see them with 7, but 5 is a good number to put on here. Chicago at 3-14. I don't know if they're going to prove something. I know in some of my other predictions I had Chicago winning like 7 games in one, 5 in another. But 3-14 is probably going to be the best way of going on here for the Chicago Bears. The NFC South. Once again, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to go take this division away. Even though they have a new head coach, they're still going to win the division, and they're still going to be one of the top teams in the NFC, in the NFL as well. Tampa Bay is going to finish with a 13-4 record. New Orleans Saints, they're going to try to battle their hearts out to try to be a wild card team. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case here. They're going to fall 8-9 as their record. I know that I might be a little harsh on them, but that's the way I see it. And maybe they'll improve. Maybe they'll have 9 or 10 wins, or they'll have like 6 wins. But I picked 8, so depending on the schedule that they have. Now, this could be a toss-up for the last 2 positions in the division, Carolina and Atlanta. Carolina with a 4-13 and Atlanta with a 3-14. Atlanta is going to be the last place team because the fact is we don't know how they're going to play. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Don't know how everything's going to turn out. So that's why I have them down as 3-14. Carolina, I know they have Baker Mayfield coming from Cleveland, but will we see Carolina improve? Maybe, maybe not. So, but I'm going to go with a say 4-13 record for them for this time. And finally, we have the NFC West, which is going to be another competitive division. You have the LA Rams 13-4, San Francisco with 12-5, Arizona Cardinals with 10-7, Seattle with 4-13. With Los Angeles, they're going to lose a couple of rough games, tough games, and but they're going to still be the number one team in the division. San Francisco is going to give the Rams a run for their money too, but being at 12-5, they'll only end up being a wild card. Arizona, 10-7, even with a few of their players being suspended and missing time in the beginning of the season, I could see them still making the playoffs at 10-7. But we don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. Seattle, their quarterback situation and their whole team situation is yuck. So 4-13's optimistic right now for the record. Now, we talked about the regular season and their seedings, or the regular season and their standings and divisions. Let's talk about their seedings. And first off, we have the AFC playoff seeds. I have Buffalo for number 1 with 14-3. I have Cincinnati at number 2 with 13-4. I have Indianapolis Colts at number 3, Kansas City at number 4, Baltimore at number 5, Las Vegas Raiders at number 6. This time I did put Las Vegas on there, so don't scream at me for messing up that one time. And then we have Denver being the number 7 seed at 10-7. This is going to be an interesting wild card picture here, or playoff picture here, because we could see all 4 AFC West teams actually be on here, but we only see 3 out of the 4. It's going to be very competitive. I'm not going to tell you, it's going to be very competitive coming down the line. Indianapolis wins the tiebreaker over Kansas City due to the head-to-head matchup when they play versus each other, and then Las Vegas wins the tiebreaker over Denver due to common opponents. It's gonna be a rough time in the AFC West, and we'll just have to wait and see on how everything turns out to be. But I do have Buffalo as the number 1 seed with Josh Allen and their team being the strongest team in the conference. Cincinnati, yeah, they were the AFC champs, but I give them a number 2 seed instead this time around because of Buffalo has a better schedule and everything and could make it be interesting. Indianapolis Colts replaces the Tennessee Titans on here as the AFC South, but they only get the number 3 seed compared to Tennessee last year where they had the number 1 seed. Then the Chiefs were the number 2 seed last year. They are the number 4 seed this time around. Baltimore makes it in. Denver makes it in. Replaces New England in. Who else was in there? Hold on, let me think here. Who else is in there? Oh yeah, New England and sorry, trying to think. If you guys know it, just let me know. I think. Oh yeah, Pittsburgh. Never mind, Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's not going to have a good season, so. All right, onward to the NFC. We have Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Los Angeles all tied with 13-4. That's going to be very tough because you have the LA Rams, who are the defending NFC champs and Super Bowl champs, ranked as the number 3 seed. You have Tampa Bay ranked as the number 1 seed. You have Green Bay ranked as the number 2 seed. They all share the 13-4 record. It's going to be very interesting to see it. And then number 4 seed, I have Dallas Cowboys at 11-6. Now Minnesota is the number 5 seed at 13-4. And then you have San Francisco as the number 6 seed at 12-5, and Arizona with 10-7. Tampa Bay wins tiebreaker over Green Bay and LA due to head-to-head sweep of both of them. Green Bay wins tiebreaker over LA due to head-to-head tiebreaker. Green Bay beats Los Angeles in my predictions. Green Bay wins tiebreaker over Minnesota due to common opponents. And they both have the same divisional record. So. But as you can see here, anything could happen. You know, the team that's actually replaced on here is Minnesota replaces Philadelphia. Otherwise, these are all the teams that were in the playoffs last season. And speaking of playoffs, let's get going and see who's going to be in those playoffs and how they do. Well, you already know who's going to be in the playoffs. Let's see how the results are going to be. Start out with the AFC wildcard and divisional rounds. We have KC taking care of business against Baltimore. We have Indianapolis taking care of business over Las Vegas, and Cincinnati taking care of business over Denver. So that means for the divisional round, you have KC going to Buffalo and Indianapolis going to Cincinnati, where we have Buffalo beating KC and Cincinnati beating Indianapolis, where we're going to have a showdown of Buffalo versus Cincinnati for the conference championship. It's interesting how that's going to work out as we get along here. We turn our focus to the NFC wildcard and divisional rounds, where we have, this is the only road game I think I have on here for the wildcard round. Minnesota over Dallas. Minnesota can prove something over Dallas, because we don't know how Dallas is going to be, and Dallas keeps faltering at the wild card, every single time, so that's why I have them losing to Minnesota. And then we have LA over San Francisco, kind of part 3 of their matchups. And then you have Green Bay over Arizona. Yes. And then in the divisional rounds, well, you have Minnesota traveling to Tampa Bay, and you have Los Angeles traveling to Green Bay. And Tampa Bay is going to beat Minnesota. LA is going to win over Green Bay, but that one is going to be very tight. Very, very tight. LA over Green Bay. That one is going to be very, very tight. So, I see it. It could go either way, but I'm going with LA being Green Bay at Lambeau Field. Now, conference championships, which is going to be held in Buffalo and in Tampa Bay, where we have Buffalo making their very first Super Bowl trip in 29 seasons with the win over Cincinnati. And then you have Tampa Bay trying to get back to the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years, their third trip, and it would be over the LA Rams. I know what you're thinking. It could go either way on that one too, because you had LA beating Tampa in Tampa last season, so in the playoffs. But this season, it's going to be Tampa Bay's turn to win the game. And it's actually going to be conference championship too. So it's like, you never know, right? All right. Super Bowl 57 in Arizona. And my prediction is going to be Buffalo Bills over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm a Tom Brady fan. However, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are going to be too much to prove, and they're going to be too much for Tampa to handle. And I have a feeling that this is also going to be Tom Brady's last game as a quarterback in the NFL. And I know it's wrong for me to say that that we're going to send them out with a loss in the Super Bowl, but that's the way I have it. And I know Buffalo is going to be a good team. I know either one of these two teams are going to be great. And I have a feeling that Buffalo is going to take care of business and get their first Super Bowl title in the great city of Buffalo, New York. Because I know Buffalo has been waiting a very long time for a Super Bowl championship. And I have a feeling it's going to be this coming season. And the winner, and they're going to win over Tampa Bay. But anyways, here is what happened in the 2022 NFL season. For the very first time in an entire division of playoff teams, which is the AFC West, all four teams could make it into the playoffs. It's going to be a very competitive division, and I have a feeling that all four of the teams are going to make it if things work out the way they're going to work out. Though right now I only have 3 out of the 4 making it. And then you have Tom Brady of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could be playing in his 11th Super Bowl and could win his 8th Super Bowl ring. And then Pittsburgh could have a losing season for the first time since the 2003 season, the season before Ben Roethlisberger became quarterback of the Steelers. I know all good things have to come to an end. I get that. And I know I don't like to predict that, but I have a feeling it's going to happen because we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be in Pittsburgh. So I'm like, I got to be optimistic here that Pittsburgh is not going to have a winning season. And this happened also with New England when Tom Brady left the team. And then the 2020 season, the Patriots had their first losing season since since 2000 with a 7-9 record. So, I mean, I gotta be optimistic when I'm predicting this, and there are other things that could happen in 2022, but we just don't know yet. We could see Jacksonville being better than they were last year, which I have them down as winning 5 games instead of 3 like they did last year, and other things could happen. We just don't know yet. All right. Now, these are going to be the next section here is going to be my opinions on the 17th game and the preseason. My opinion on the NFL 17th game. I hate it. I hate it, I hate it, and I hate it. And I'm going to tell you why I hate it. But the things I'm going to talk about is that there's an odd number of games. One conference gets an extra home game, while the other conference gets a road game, and they switch them out every year. The 17th game is supposed to be at a neutral site, which you don't have. You don't have that, and it needs to be improved. And I'm also gonna suggest ideas for neutral sites coming up on the next slide. But it needs to be neutral. You cannot have like one team having more home games than another, or more road games than another, you know? And this makes it difficult because it also extends the season a week later. And for me, I would like to see the NFL season end in January or the first weekend in February. I don't want to have to go deep into February just for a Super Bowl. And I'll talk about that when we come up to that later on. But I just don't like it to be that way. If the NFL wants to expand, why can't you expand into Labor Day weekend? I get it that there's a bye week between, or open date week between the third preseason game and the first regular season game. I get that, but why you need that? You in the past you had when you had four preseason games, the following week was week one of the regular season. Why do you do have you know what I mean? Why have the break in between? Why can't you have it like move it up the schedule or something if you're going to have that happen? I say, why doesn't the NFL play on Labor Day weekend like they used to? That'd be a great way to kick off the season, in my opinion. And then here's the thing, too, with this Super Bowl 61 could be played on Valentine's Day in 2027. Do you really want to compete versus Valentine's Day? Have a Super Bowl interfere with Valentine's Day? Are you kidding me? It's ridiculous. If I was to have Valentine's Day, I would want to spend Valentine's Day. Just enjoy Valentine's Day, not have to worry about a game either. And here's the other reason why I don't like the 17th game. If two teams meet every 2 years, and I'm going to show an example of this in a couple of slides, then one team would host 3 of the games, while the other team would only host once in an 8-year period, unless the cycle gets changed up to avoid that. And I'm going to show you 2 examples coming up of why, if I can get this going here. All right. Ideas for neutral spots for the 17th game. Some of these are already played in the regular season. We have London with its Wembley and Tottenham Hotspur stadiums, Mexico City, and for the first time this year, NFL is going to be playing in Munich, Germany, which is a great locations to have neutral site games. The 17th game should be played on those sites, And then I come up with a few others. Orlando, as it was the past Pro Bowl spot from 2017 to 2020. And then you have St. Louis, who used to be home to the Rams. Don't know if they still have their stadium there or not. And then you have San Antonio, Birmingham, Alabama could be another neutral site game, or even Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Though that's a little too small of a town to have a NFL game. But I'm just throwing it out there. But Birmingham, Alabama could be a perfect spot to have a game, neutral site. And then you have Honolulu, on that because they hosted the Pro Bowl like 30 some odd times. And then you have Toronto that hosted NFL games during December. Now, the Canadian cities that I have on this list, you're going to have to wait until like December to play the games in these sites because of the CFL. So after the CFL season ends, and those are Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal, Edmonton, and then obviously Toronto. There's other places too, like Ottawa, Hamilton, um, Winnipeg even, you know. And then I just threw in this one, which is actually in the southern hemisphere, but close enough in time where the NFL likes to play, Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro could be a great spot to have a neutral site game. And then you have Paris, you have Rome, you have Dublin, where they hosted a few of the college football games in Dublin. Madrid, Lisbon has been talked about. San Diego is getting a new stadium, so why don't you have a game there? Omaha, Nebraska, that has been talked about having a team there at one point or another. And even with the XFL and the USFL and all these other leagues that you have, they had a team featured in Omaha, so why not? And then another city I would like to see is Virginia Beach, Virginia, maybe even Hartford, Connecticut. Um, but there are quite a few. Columbus, Ohio. Well, we'll just have to see on that. But those are my ideas. Another idea could be Ann Arbor, Michigan, which I doubt would be one. I'm just saying, just throwing that in. Maybe Portland, Oregon could have a neutral site game. Salt Lake City could have a neutral site game. The only problem is with Salt Lake, it might have to be on a Thursday or a Monday because of the Mormon religion out there. So, but we'll have to wait and see on that. All right, let's look at those international games for this season. Denver versus Jacksonville. As I remember, those two teams are in the AFC. So Jacksonville's actually losing one home game because of this. Seattle and Tampa Bay are in the NFC. San Francisco versus Arizona, which is going to be played in Mexico City. Arizona, and that's a rivalry game. That's an NFC West game. They have Minnesota versus New Orleans, New York Giants versus Green Bay. And here's the note I put on here. None of these are an NFL 17th game. You're playing them on neutral sites, and yet none of these are the 17th game in the NFL, which is ridiculous. Why you have the 17th game if you don't utilize the neutral sites? You know, I feel that you guys should have the games be on neutral sites, you know? And I feel that the international games should be that case, you know? I would love to see New England versus Arizona in Mexico City. Or even Kansas City versus Tampa Bay in Germany. You know, I hope the NFL improves it for next year and makes sure that the international games are neutral 17th game sites. So it'd be fair for everyone. I was talking about earlier how you could have like an example of where 3 years, or no, an example of 8 years where the team hosting the games 3 times and the other team hosting the game only once in an 8 year cycle. I'm talking about Dallas and New England, and I'm using Arizona and New England as examples. Now, 2019, the game was held in New England. Thanks to that stupid 17th game, the 2021 game was also held in New England because of how both teams were in the standing. Now, 2023, they're playing in Dallas because that's where the cycle of divisions play. So next season, they're going to be playing in Dallas. 2025, if they were to finish again in the same position, the game would again be in New England. And in 2027, the game would be in New England. So you see here, in a period of 8 years, you notice that, or you notice that the 5 games, only one of them is going to be in Dallas. What gives? You know? So, I mean, they need to change it up. So this does not happen. And then let's put Arizona and New England in the same position. 2020, the game was in New England. 2022, thanks to the placing in the divisions in the 17th game, the game's in Arizona. 2024, it's already being scheduled in Arizona. 2026, if both teams were to finish in the same position in 2025, the game would be in Arizona again. And in 2028, the game would be in New England. So look at that, for example. You have 3 times in a row where you have Arizona hosting it, whereas New England's only hosting it once in an 8-year period, an 8-season period. You know, ridiculous. So, regular season and playoff scheduling, I have opinion on. Since the NFL wants to play an extra week, why is the Labor Day weekend off? Why can't they schedule games on Labor Day weekend? Why is there a week between conference championship and Super Bowl to make the game to be on the second Sunday in February? Tell me that. Why not have the regular season start either the week before Labor Day or on Labor Day weekend itself? I don't know. It would make more sense. Maybe if they played like 1 or 2 regular season games before Labor Day, and then they could have Labor Day weekend off, and then continue with the rest of the games and have a bye week during that stretch. I don't know, but that's a good case to put on. And then here's the thing: would you want to play a Super Bowl on the same day as Valentine's Day, as the case might be in 2027? It would also, personally, this is my personal thought, it would also interfere with the 2027 Springfield RV Camping and Outdoor Show, since it's on that same weekend. And I'm very involved with that. So, I mean, crowds would be less on that day anyways, for for that day. But I'm not going into details on that. And then why is the Super Bowl played on a Sunday? Why can't it be played on a Saturday instead? You know, but here's the thing. There's been a couple of petitions out there to move Super Bowl to Saturday, because if people watch the game on Saturday, then they could just sleep in on Sunday and have that day off. Whereas if the game's on Sunday, then you have people going back to work on Monday. It's like, it's ridiculous on how they set it up that way. And I kind of agree with the petitions that they have for it to be moved to a Saturday, for the game to be on a Saturday instead of on a Sunday. You know? And then another case is, would you want to have the Super Bowl played on the same day as Valentine's Day, as the case of 2027? Valentine's Day is supposed to be a romantic day. It's not supposed to be a day to watch a football game. Come on now. I know other sports play on Valentine's Day, but a championship game being played on Valentine's Day? I don't know. That's crazy. And then, like I said, why is the Super Bowl played on a Sunday? I know it's tradition to play on Sunday, but why can't it be played on a Saturday instead? You know? And we already talked about that. And then maybe have the Super Bowl on a Saturday and Pro Bowl on a Sunday of the same weekend at the same site. Come on now. That'd be cool to see that. That way you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone and have both of the games be held on that same weekend at the same stadium. And then here's a precedent that they did. They had Super Bowl 56 play during the 2022 Winter Olympic Games in Beijing. So you're going to throw around with the Olympics just to have your championship game during that. It's ridiculous. Let the people play the Olympics. Come on. Why you have to mess it up? The Olympics were scheduled first before your Super Bowl was scheduled. And last season, I would have had played the Super Bowl. Actually, I would have moved up the opening game to Labor Day weekend and have the Super Bowl be played on the week before the Olympic Games started. That's my opinion, anyways. But no, you had to add another game, make the season extended once more, and have it played during the Olympics. Come on. You know, it's ridiculous. My thoughts on the NFL preseason. The NFL allowing teams from the same conference playing versus each other when the game should be AFC versus NFC, I do have a problem with that because why should you play a game versus another team that you're going to play in like 2 or 3 years? Whereas you, like the other conference, you most of the time you're not going to be playing versus that team for like 4 years. So you should be playing versus those teams and not versus the same conference. And then there are only three preseason games, thanks to that stupid 17th game. And it depends on if you have a road game for that 17th game, you get a home game, the second home game for the preseason. And if you get the extra home game during the regular season, you only get one home game, which is completely crazy too. I feel that they should have AFC versus NFC for all preseason games. Not this AFC versus AFC, NFC versus NFC. It's just ridiculous. It's stupid. In my opinion, it's stupid. They would allow that to happen. And I know it's only preseason, but I mean, think about it. Would you rather play versus a team in the preseason that you don't play that often, or would you want to play a team that you play a lot? Or and here's another fact that I don't like either, is why you play a team that you're going to be playing in the upcoming regular season. You know, this is my opinion. But why would you want to do that? Let the, Save the action for the regular season. Don't play versus each other in the preseason. Unless it's like one of those rivalry location games like New York versus New York, Los Angeles versus Los Angeles, if you know what I mean. Or Baltimore versus Washington, Baltimore versus Philadelphia, you know. And here are some of those same conference games I was talking about. Jacksonville versus Las Vegas was the Hall of Fame game. Tennessee versus Baltimore, Atlanta versus Detroit, Cleveland versus Jacksonville, Green Bay, San Francisco, Carolina, Washington, Indianapolis, Buffalo. So you have like 6 games in week 1. Then you have Chicago, Seattle, New Orleans, Green Bay, Denver, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Miami, San Francisco, Minnesota for week 2. And that's 6 games. And then you have 2 games, Seattle, Seattle, Dallas, and New England, Las Vegas for week 3 of the preseason. It's ridiculous. And you notice that on this list, you have no teams, you have no New York on here or no Los Angeles on here. You realize that? You think something's screwy? I think this is screwy to have all these games being played in the preseason, like conference games being played in the in the preseason. Excuse me. It's ridiculous to have it. I'm sorry to say that. It needs to be AFC versus NFC, not AFC versus AFC, NFC versus NFC. What? You know, it's just ridiculous. And I hate those type of games. I don't know about you. I do. And these are just my opinions. So I hope that I give you a good impression on that. All right. So, anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I know I've given you a lot, and I know I've said it about my opinions and my predictions. And I hope everyone enjoys their 2022 NFL season. And I hope that if you like videos like this, or if you want to learn more about this person with autism who's an NFL fan who likes to travel across the country, I hope that you're willing to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to my podcast channel. Would love to have more listeners, would love to have more viewers, and I know everyone's opinions and predictions are going to be different, and I respect that. This is just from my thought of view, point of view, so I hope you guys enjoy this and let your team win. I know for me, it's Patriots, so go Pats, and we'll see how everything's done. Maybe I'll do another NFL prediction coming after week 8 or week 9. So we get halfway. And I can tell you if I'm right or wrong in the predictions. So, but anyways, thank you for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed the season.